Hi, everybody. Welcome back to John and Leah's Reviews. Today, we're going to be reviewing The Challenge Season 40 Eras, Episode 3. I'm so sorry that we have had a delay in between. There's just been a lot going on personally, but we just wanted to go ahead and knock out this review, and then in our next video, we'll go ahead and do the fourth episode so we can be all up to date. But thank you so much for coming back. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and we're about to get into it. So we started off the episode with a lot of focus on the personal relationships within the challengers. We've seen Emily and Brad, and we've seen Josh and Naya and Kyland. So there's a little bit of a love triangle there. We see Devin, who's always getting naked for some reason, and just seeing everybody interact with each other within their eras and outside of it.
I mean, Brad just has a lot. He always seems to find love on the challenge, like always. I mean, well, at least once every other challenge. I mean, he got married, then he got divorced, then he had a really young girlfriend, then he had no girlfriend. Now he seems to want Emily to be his girlfriend. I don't know.
Yeah, so it's nice to see those personal relationships develop, but at the same time, let's go ahead and get into the meat of the episode. And the targets for this episode are Jody and Darrell, Derek and Aviv, Tony and Avery, and Lacey and Kyland.
And I mean, the targets of this episode were actually really interesting to me, just from the standpoint of, like, the targets weren't necessarily the strongest people on any team. Like, no team really put their strongest people as the targets. I mean, I guess that kind of makes sense, but at the same time, I just don't know how it's going to fold out in the rest of the game, because you don't necessarily know how much power the people who create targets are going to have, and you don't necessarily know for sure yet exactly what it means to be a target. If you go into elimination, if you win, like, what do you get out of it? Like, because I mean, TJ always has something that when you survive eliminations these days, TJ always has something for you. Like, you always receive some type of benefit. So I'm just interested to see what the benefit's going to be now. All right, so this challenge was basically done in 3 parts. You had the first part, which was them rowing in a giant boat. I don't think it wasn't a canoe. It was literally a giant boat. And immediately from the outset, Era 3 started killing everybody. And they're actually kind of shaking up to look like they might be the strongest team, at least there right now. They immediately started smoking everybody. They were in the water. They were cruising past everybody. I mean, the only team that gave them a challenge really was Era 2. Era 2 kind of came back and got really close to them. Their boats collided, but Era 3 kind of got like right back on track and just rode their way all the way through. Era 4 kind of was like bringing up some of the rear compared to Era 3 and Era 2, while Era 1 was one man down, one ship down. If any of them have ever went sailing, they should be very ashamed of themselves. Apparently, it was told. Brad said that he knew how to do something that apparently he didn't know how to do. Then he broke his paddle. So I mean, you got CT getting pissed off at everybody, Derek getting pissed off at everybody, Darrell getting pissed off at everybody. Like, it was just hilarious to see. Like, they're obviously so confused. Like, it's just funny to really see all of them interacting with each other. I mean, because it's obviously too many Chiefs and not enough Indians.
Yep, and I know we went over that in our last review. That's just how I feel about Era 1. It's just so many people who want to be the leader that they're not going to be able to work together. And I think this was definitely apparent in this challenge for sure. Yeah. Because when you're doing a challenge like this, it's so important to, even have a leader, but also being able to listen to each other and saying, okay, everybody go left, everybody go right, everybody do this, everybody do that. And it's like everybody just wanted to be in charge. So I can definitely see how that's an issue now and how it could be an issue moving forward. It was nice to see Era 3, my favorite era, getting like the head start and staying in first place for that. And I said in our last review that Era 3 is my favorite, but and the reason why is because I can tell that they actually like each other and they're willing to work together, which was very apparent in this this challenge. After that, they had to eat a plate of Vietnamese delicacy, and these delicacies included snake and rat medley, pig brains, coconut worms, duck embryo, boiled cow eyes, and tofu and durian. And I was almost throwing up watching it, so I can't even imagine being in front of it and having to eat it. But we had some challengers who just kind of like took it in stride. And I saw Tori, I saw Tony kind of just saying, all right, let's get it done. Of course, we saw a lot of throwing up. I'm actually shocked that we got an eating challenge so early on, because I feel like that usually comes towards the end, or at least like before the final or during the final. So that was interesting, but some people toughed it through, and some people it took a little while.
I mean, Tony is obviously a human garbage disposal, so Era 3 felt really confident going into it. We have Tony, so we're pretty safe. Mm-hmm. Like, it doesn't really matter what happens.
Mm-hmm. And so after that, they had to list the challenge seasons in order, and this is where Tori really shined. She said that she had studied it before she even came here, which I feel like is probably the best thing to do if you know you're coming on season 40. At some point, you're going to have to list all of the challenges and all of the seasons beforehand. So very smart on Tori's end, and everybody kind of like knew that she knew, or was comfortable with her taking charge. And so that's another thing with Era 3. They're just like, okay, let's do it. We're listening to you. We trust you. Let's go ahead and do it that way. And they got it in the first go. They end up winning the challenge altogether. Era 4 came in second. Era 2 came in third. And, of course, Era 1 came in last, because nobody wants to work together.
Dead last. Like, they didn't even get to the portion where they should have been great. Like, between all of them, they've been on every single season. Like, that's the very final part of this challenge would have been where they were able to shine, and they didn't even get there. Congrats.
Exactly. It's just another thing that we're going to see, I'm sure, a lot with Era 1. And it's not even about them being old and about them, like, not being able to do the things. They just don't listen to each other.
Well, wait. They really are old, though.
I mean, they are old, but also, if they had worked together on that challenge, they would have been totally fine and killed that last portion, especially with CT. So then we get into the toga party after all of that, and I loved how they had like each person or each couple come down, and we saw their outfits, and it was like a whole thing. They got really dressed up, really in the spirit. Cara Maria's outfit was hilarious. It's so Cara Maria. But it was nice to see them actually like getting ready and going out to party and having a good time with each other. And then during that time, kind of strategizing and seeing who's on their alliance, who's not on their alliance. So it's nice for me to watch personally.
I mean, it seemed like it was like kind of like a throwback to what the challenge used to be. Like, they used to always do these little parties like during the challenge to kind of take your mind off of like actually being in a competition. But we just haven't seen that recently. Like, it's kind of gotten away from that. But this felt, and I mean, Johnny even alluded to it. Like, he said this felt like the old challenge house. Like, this is like what it used to be like. Mm-hmm. You would do different activities, or they would think of different creative things to do to have fun. And so,
too bad nobody wanted Johnny at that time, but I can tell you who did want each other. It was Kylan and Naya. They were making out in their little corner, and then I think they migrated over to the bed. They were making sounds. Look, I don't know what happened, but I know something went down. And Josh ended up overhearing it, and he didn't really seem too upset. I think he was just kind of like, I like this girl, but whatever, because I feel like Josh 2-3 seasons ago would have been crying about this.
He would have been screaming in the house like, how could you do this to me?
After knowing her for like 24 hours.
But now Josh seems much more mature. I mean, I don't know. Mm-hmm. Like, we talked about this. It seems like Josh seems a lot more likable without Fessy around.
Very true. I mean, it is a little weird to have Era's season without Fessy on it, because I feel like he was so instrumental and so important within these last few seasons. However, seeing Josh on here without him, you really see his personality shine. It seems like he's very like mellow, and he can actually come into his own, and we can see his personality apart from that. But it also highlights the fact that Josh and Casey are not really that close, or not as close as I thought they were, because I thought with them both being on here, like it kind of was before, that they would kind of gravitate towards each other. They would already like form their alliance. They would be hanging out, eating breakfast, whatever.
Negative.
It seems like they haven't even interacted at all, unless it was in regards to the actual challenge. So that's a little bit interesting. And the part where we saw Josh's frustration was when he overheard Tori laughing at something someone said. I don't exactly remember what happened, but Tori was shit-faced drunk and laughing at Josh. Josh overheard. Josh was like, we're not friends anymore. She was like, you don't want to be my friend? Very drunk.
We're not friends anymore. Like,
But you can kind of tell they were both a little bit inebriated. That was just one of those things where it's like, let's just talk about this in the morning. So I have no doubts about that alliance being cut.
They'll be friends.
They'll be fine.
And then we move on. I mean, it's just, of course, it's always got to be some foolishness happening, right? Like, it's always some foolishness happening in the challenge. And this season, the foolishness has already started. Era 3-1. So, of course, Tony Reigns and Avery are the targets. They are the captains. So they get to decide who's going to go in from the other targets. Now, Avery is saying, I cannot throw in Era 4. I cannot throw in Era 2. I cannot throw in Derek because we're friends. Like, we're actual friends. Like, outside of the house, she was talking about how she slept on Derek's couch or they lived together for like a year. Like, they're actual friends. So, obviously, the ship has sailed. He's not throwing Derek in. Meanwhile, Tony's thinking about it from a strategic standpoint. Like, hey, I know Bananas and them in Era 2. Nobody in Era 2 has my back. Nobody really in Era 3 has my back. Nobody in Era 1 has my back. The only people throwing me a bone is Era 4. They're saying if I look out for them right now, they will look out for me later. I understand Tony's game plan. I do. Now, going into the elimination, and everybody knows, you don't mess with TJ. Okay? Don't piss TJ off. Don't do anything funny. Don't try to drag it out because TJ's going to make you pay. And after the challenge, for the majority of the rest of the episode, everybody was always wondering, Tony and Avery are both playing chicken, obviously. They're waiting to see which one of them is going to lay an egg, to see which one of them is going to back off or back down and just, go with the other person's decision.
I can tell you right now, that would never be me. I'm making a decision.
Man,
at the end of the day, it's either you or me, and there's $1 million on the
I
line.
am so sorry. I love you. We're best friends. You're going in. I'm not going in. I won. I got the right to not go in. But unfortunately, they were both playing chicken, and neither of them laid an egg. So what happened? Tony Reigns and Avery ended up having to go in against Jody and Darrell. And I'm not going to lie to you. If you had asked me this before the episode, I would have told you Avery and Tony were both going packing. They were both buying plane tickets to go back home. Unfortunately for Jody, it seemed like Avery just had more in the bag with it. I mean, Avery was able to beat Jody in her elimination. We both agreed Darrell smoked Tony, but Avery was saying the entire time she thinks Tony just wants to go home. She thinks he was maybe homesick, missing his kids. I don't know, but even during the elimination, Tony looked like he was ready to go home. He looked like he didn't want to be there. He looked like he gave minimal effort in the elimination as a whole. And I mean, it was more of a brain teaser. But Darrell's not the brightest light bulb either, and he's already said it. He's not good at puzzles or the brain teaser aspects of the challenge. So it just looked like Tony gave up. He looked like he didn't care. He looked like he didn't want to be there. I mean, it was kind of why even come on the show this year?
Yep, totally agree. There's no reason why Tony shouldn't have won that challenge. As much as I like Darrell, that should have been an easy thing for Tony to do. And then when they were showing the edits, as far as how far they were getting, it seemed like Darrell was way ahead of Tony, and it just didn't make sense to me. I think he definitely did want to go home. And honestly, I don't think Avery wanted to go home, but I think both of them made a really, really dumb decision. And although, you do kind of have to rely on alliances a little bit, at the same time, either way, you're going to have to hold your own, whether it's right now or whether it's down the line. And so if I got to go in, I got to go in. But if I don't have to, I'm not going to. And that's the whole thing with me. Either I'm going to have an alliance with one group of people, or I'm going to have it with another group, but I'm not going to sacrifice myself with $1 million on the line to go in and potentially go home. So I think that was a dumb decision on both of their parts, just because you just never know how it's going to end up. But for Tony, it definitely seemed like he made that decision for a reason.
What a bonehead. And then after the elimination, we finally find out what you get as a target. So if you're the target and you go into the elimination and you win, you get to pick the targets for each team for the next challenge. And we saw a little bit of a shakeup early on. Darrell picked every single woman, and Avery picked every male for each era. And I mean, you know, we got the targets for the next week. We have in era 1, you have Derek and Anissa. Era 2, we have Johnny and Laurel. Era 3, we have Jordan and Naya. Era 4, we have Horacio and Jenny. So next week is actually going to be really interesting. I'm interested to see exactly how everything shakes up and everything, you know, shakes out with all of the competitors and all of the other challenges. You know, I mean, what would you rate this episode if you had to rate it 1 out of 10?
I'd give it an 8. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I really did. I like the editing was much better this episode. We were able to see like their relationships first, and then we got into the challenge. Then we came back. We did a party, and then we went into the elimination. So I think it was edited in the perfect way where you know, get the best of both worlds, but also it's still action packed and entertaining and engaging. So I would definitely rate it an 8.
Ladies and gentlemen, she gave it an 8.
How about yourself?
I think I give it an 8 too, or maybe a 7. Maybe a 7, but 7 or 8, I think both would be good. Like you said, I think the editing was a lot better. I think we got to see a lot of the almost kind of like a throwback to their roots, like what the challenge actually used to look like. So it was nice seeing that. And then it was also nice to see everybody competing. Tony essentially throwing the challenge, kind of weak, but everything else about the episode was actually pretty A+. So actually, you know what? I think I might give it a 9.
I can understand that.
I think a 9 is warranted here.
Well, thank you guys so much for watching. We're going to be back very soon to review episode 4, and then we should be all up to date. But please like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.